Well, Nikki, thank you so much for joining me to talk about something really important coming up here in Wisconsin at the end of July, early August, and we'll get to that in a minute. But before we get there, why don't you just share with our listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, etc.
I'm happy to do that. Thanks for inviting me. I listened to some of your other podcasts and I feel very honored to be able to join you today. So thanks so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
All right. I am originally from Independence, Missouri, Harry Truman's town, if you know your
Hmm.
history. But then after that, with my husband, I moved all over the country. So I have lived in Minneapolis and San Francisco and Pittsburgh and Kansas City and Boston and now finally Wisconsin. And actually, the fun thing about Wisconsin is that I have now lived here longer than I've ever lived in any other place my whole life. So I guess I
Yay,
can call
go
myself a
Wisconsin.
Wisconsinite now.
It's official.
It's official. So I moved to Racine in 2008, and I came here to be closer to my sister who moved here in 2004. So that's how I became a Wisconsinite.
That's wonderful. And I get asked as the executive director for a nonprofit justice faith-based organization that's a little bit of a niche space. And so I know a lot of people, even in my family, ask they don't completely understand what I do or maybe even how I got here. But every time I talk to somebody, especially on this podcast, I always am fascinated with kind of the arc or the journey or the story that gets them to a place like this. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. How do you get in life to a place where you're working with such an incredible organization like Wisdom here in Wisconsin?
Oh, that is a very interesting story. So when I came to Wisconsin, I got involved because I had been involved in some political work in actually in the Boston area, and I met my friends here. And among the people I met were the president of the Racine Interfaith Coalition, and we called this person. Her name is Linda Boyle, as a matter of fact, and we call her the Pied Piper of Racine Interfaith Coalition because everybody follows her and she gets everybody involved. That, by the way, is the hallmark of a good capacity building organization. So she first got me involved in 2008, 2009 in the immigration task force. And so here we are still working on immigration. But after that, I was also the head of the education task force and part now of the Environmental Justice Task Force, and also worked on the Turn Up the Vote or the voter outreach task force for Racine Interfaith Coalition. My background is not in religion or nonprofits. I come to this work with a lot of many years of business experience. I spent the first 20 years of my career and with telecom and technology companies in general management, marketing roles. And then I had another 20 plus years of consulting, where I had my own consulting business where I did strategy work for startups and nonprofits. So, and nonprofit and profit companies, multinational companies. Where those come together is that when I came to Racine, I started to also do some work with nonprofits. So I worked with Wisdom, one of Wisdom's other affiliates in Kenosha,
Hmm.
and also some churches in Racine and Milwaukee on helping them do their strategy work. And I even in 2019 did a consulting project for Wisdom to help them try to think about how to have their affiliates and the statewide organization work well together. So it my business career and my work with nonprofits and doing this kind of work came together, I'm going to say now 15 plus years ago.
Wonderful. I always, I've been in the nonprofit world for a long time now, and one of the most wonderful and helpful assets that I've always thought I've had are the people that are in the for-profit business world because it's a different type of thinking, and if we can apply the right pieces of it to the nonprofit world, it makes such a huge difference. And I know I've got
Mhm.
people that have consulted with organizations that I've been in, and I've got friends that are in the business world, and I'm often picking their brains because I think, as a nonprofit director, I just often think a little bit differently than a for-profit person, and sometimes it's really interesting to see what space you can find in the center of that. So thank you for making that transition and leaning your expertise into the nonprofit world because a lot of us really need it. And
It has been very interesting. It is different, but there are, some fundamental similarities in terms of
mhm.
the importance of governance and the importance of working with people and so forth. So I do find a lot of things where I can contribute, and it's really helpful. Let me just share with you how I came to be the interim co-executive director of Wisdom, which
Yeah.
is my
Yeah,
current
usually
my
that works
current
by somebody backs you in a corner and you can't say no, but
My
I don't
friend, I know.
know.
I joined the board of Wisdom again, having worked in multiple ones of the affiliates. But I joined the board of Wisdom in the fall of 2025 after David Liners, our longtime executive
Yep.
director, left. And we had then, after he left, we had an interim director, and then she left in December of 2025. And so I was on the board, as was Reverend Marilyn Miller, who is my co-executive director. And we weren't quite ready as an organization to hire a new permanent executive director. We hadn't finished that process. So Marilyn and I said, well, we will step in as interim co-executive directors. And it's been a wonderful, interesting experience. Marilyn also has deep roots in the work. Obviously, she is a second career ELCA
Mm,
minister, and she was also for some years and still is very involved in MICA, which is
yep.
Milwaukee's affiliate of Wisdom, faith-based affiliate of Wisdom. And so she and I have been working together now since January in this role. And it's looking like maybe we'll finish out the year. We'll see how it
Okay.
goes. But yeah, it's at this point in my career, it's been really interesting to take on this new challenge, and I'm learning a lot of new things, and of course, enjoying being able to be deeply involved in the work.
Yeah, that's amazing. We were joking before we hit record that you and I are some of the few people in this work that don't have a title like reverend or rabbi in front of our
Right.
name, and so it's kind of nice to be in your company this morning, where I'm not a little bit feeling overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge that some of our wonderful faith leaders have in this
Yes.
work. But it's been good. Okay, let's again, the work that we do is unique and beautiful and wonderful. And I was introduced to wisdom because my wife and my family and I've spent most of my adult years in Eau Claire, and we have Jonah up there and a great
Yes.
organizer doing has they were doing incredible work the entire time. We were there for 25, 27 years, and that entire time, just some really meaningful work happening. And it might have even, I don't know for sure, but it might have been the first time I understood that organizations like this exist, and now, Wisconsin Faith Voices operates in a really similar way to Wisdom affiliates and Wisdom in general. But why don't you share a little bit in case there's somebody that is not aware, and I'm sure there are some, in case there's people who just don't understand or have never heard of Wisdom or one of its affiliates, share a little bit in some broad strokes about what you do.
Great, happy to. We're a statewide nonprofit 501(c)(3) organization, so nonpartisan nonprofit organization, and I like to call us like a network of networks, if you
Mm,
if you kind of think about it that way. We were actually started by two faith-based coalitions, Racine Interfaith Coalition and MICA in Milwaukee. And we've grown now to 11 regional affiliates. And then we also have a statewide organization called Free, which was founded by and is run by and on behalf of women and girls who are formerly or currently incarcerated. So
Hmm.
that's the statewide affiliate, but the rest are regional affiliates. And this I'm going to do try to do this by memory, but we have affiliates in Kenosha, Fox Valley, Beloit, Eau Claire, Green Bay, Milwaukee, Madison, Wausau, Racine, Manitowoc, and Waukesha.
Wonderful.
We have, I think, one of the broadest geographic reaches across the state. And as a result, I think we have the ability to really mobilize people across the state. And when we're going to talk about the Immigration Summit, I think that's one of the opportunities we have with that. The reason I call us a network of networks is because each of our affiliates then has associated congregations, mosques and synagogues. We are 20 denominations, we are multi-faith. And then each of the affiliates also has a series of task forces. So we have across our organization 182 churches, mosques, synagogues, and other organizations that are part of our affiliates, and 47 different task forces. So the task forces in each local affiliate are, are grassroots. They come from what people are passionate about and want to do something meaningful about. And so they range. I told you that I was on the education task force. So we have affordable housing task forces, we have criminal justice task forces, living wage jobs, violence prevention, immigration, environmental justice, voter education. So it's whatever is important in that organization, in that particular affiliate, and with those particular congregations. And then at the statewide level, our job, and I have a very small staff of 3 people. So at the statewide level, our job is to kind of be a force multiplier for those affiliates. And so to support them with training, some administrative help, some data collection help, and also then, uh, be able to pull together groups on a statewide level. And we have 3 issue areas that we pull together. One is immigration, one is transformational justice, and the third is environmental justice. So we try to be the statewide coordinator, facilitator, supporter, but the real work is done in the affiliates, as you were saying, in Eau Claire, the kind of wonderful work that they're doing there and all over the state. So that's who we are. Um, Most of our affiliates are quite independent, but interdependent. So it's kind of an interesting, I think as a business person, I look at this as a wonderful, you know, networking model of how you can operate in a very kind of flat organization where everyone is empowered to do the work.
Yeah, and it's really powerful that model. And we at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice on kind of a similar mindset. We have a national partnership with Interfaith Alliance, and then there's affiliates for, different states. And same thing, they allow us to do what matters in Wisconsin. So there's not somebody over in Washington, D.C. telling our organization what we should be engaged in. It's just very much more a supportive role. And that's what I've always appreciated about Wisdom is you still allow the individual affiliates to recognize and acknowledge what's important in their community. And then they do that work and you support that work. We just got done working with Katie Olson up in the Fox
Oh,
Valley
me too.
for some civic engagement work. We had a wonderful artist, Nikki Johnson, helping with some. We're celebrating Faith 250, and then we were launching our Get Out the Vote campaign called Pray with Your Vote. And it was just, I mean, she is spectacular, and some of the work that is happening in Appleton, Oshkosh area is really wonderful. So she has been a great partner. And then we've got great partnerships with Micah in Milwaukee. Special again, mostly a lot of this is through our civic engagement work
Hmm.
that we have those connections. So I'm kind of excited that we're here today to talk about some immigration work because I know we have that in common as well. So let's get into that a little bit. So some people know this, some people don't, but we at Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, we're the backbone of a coalition called the Dane Sanctuary Coalition, which is in the Madison-Dane County area. And a little plug here, just because we're talking about immigration. one of the main things that we do is we have a incredible group of volunteer drivers who give immigrant individuals and families rides to their court-ordered appointments both in Milwaukee and Chicago. So this is a huge volunteer opportunity that takes an entire day, taking somebody you probably don't even know, you may not even share the same language, and they pick them up, take them to Milwaukee often and sometimes Chicago, and just out of the kindness of their heart. And I just want the reason I bring that up is number one, just to highlight how incredible our volunteer drivers are. Number two is because in the current reality that we're living in, those rides are needed now more than ever. And so last year, the entire year, I may get these numbers a little wrong, but the entire year we gave between 120 and 130 rides. This year already, halfway through the year, there's been over 180 rides requested. So we're going to see an increase of at least a third for the entire year. The problem is if we're going to make sure we get people to where they need to go, we're going to need more volunteer drivers. So if you're listening to this, you have daytime hours available during the week, and you like long trips with strangers, and you want to do something that truly matters. I mean, you'll get home from these trips and go to bed knowing that you did something really valuable to help a human being in need. So if you're interested, just reach out to me directly at matt@wifaithvoices.org, and we will get you connected. All right, that's my little plug, Nikki. Share a little bit about some of the immigration work that Wisdom and some of your affiliates have been doing in the state.
Well, it's really interesting that you are talking about rides because actually one of the things that which I forgot to mention, one of the things that I do again with Linda Boyle and with others from Racine Interfaith Coalition is we do presentations to groups from AAUW to churches to others about myths and facts about immigration.
Mm,
And one of the things that we emphasize, and we've been working on again since I mean when I started and before then, in the 2009 2010 time, we've been working on driver's licenses
yep, yep.
for immigrants because it is unsafe. And now, of course, it's unsafe in new ways for people to be driving without a license. But that is so it's such a sad situation that we cannot be like 19 other states. I think at last count it was 19 that had driver's licenses for undocumented individuals, and
Because put
that is a
yourself,
long-term desire and need when we get through our hopefully we get through some days soon our current crisis and so forth.
yeah,
So
because put yourself in that same position, right? We say that we're a country that wants people who come here to thrive and become citizens. Yet in Wisconsin, you can't get a driver's license. So what can't you do? You can't get to work. And I mean, especially I grew up in rural Wisconsin. There's no
yeah,
buses there, you know.
right.
You can't get to work. You can't get to medical appointments. You can't get your biometrics appointments. You can't get, I mean, there's so many things you
You
can't do. You
can't,
can't
yeah.
maybe get your kids to
You
school
can't get
for
your
crying
kids
out
to
loud.
school. You can't
Yeah.
get your parents to the doctor. Yeah, there's so many things, and it's just one of the,
The
really
solution seems so
outrageous ways in
simple.
which we treat our
Yeah.
sisters and brothers in our
Ah,
communities.
anyway, I'll get off my
So yeah,
soapbox, Nikki.
so we have worked again as affiliates and across the state on a variety of things. So, from distributing Know Your Rights cards to the kinds of things you guys are doing and so forth to training ICE verifiers. We started a
Mhm.
new program with the Milwaukee Turners, training people to be legal observers for any encounter with law enforcement. Providing mutual aid. We during the pandemic we had a special fund because immigrants did not get some of the help during the financial help during the pandemic. So we had an immigrant support fund to help with everything from groceries and so forth. So for a long time we've been working on these issues, and one of my staff members, Amanda Ali, works with or facilitates a statewide organization, which is not only Wisdom affiliates, but others who are working on immigration. And the way we came to the summit, which we'll talk about in a minute, is that although everything we were doing as organizations, it was critical and important, especially in these fraught times. The question kept coming up is like, what else can we do? This feels very reactive. What else can we do? And so they started talking about, how do we make systemic change? How do
Mm.
we make sure that across the state we're not duplicating effort, and also that we do the kinds of things that build the foundation so that in the future we have made systemic change in the way we treat immigrants, at least in Wisconsin. I mean, yes, it's a federal issue, but there's so much that we can do in our individual states. So that's how this task force came up with the idea of an immigration summit. And the intent is to do two things, to work on some of those things that are not quite as reactive, such as trying to lobby and have conversations with local law enforcement and local elected officials about things like 287G agreements, and how to, mobilize others in the community who maybe are not as concerned or do not understand. So more about how to talk to your friends and neighbors about immigration and so forth. So we have now developed this idea of what we're calling the first annual um, uh, Wisconsin Immigration Summit, Stronger Together. And we're very excited about that program.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your work and bringing something together like this because most of us, in this work have felt that now for the past 18 months or so, it's been very reactionary work. And how can it not be, right? Whereas there's people getting killed in our streets. And, speaking of mutual aid, in July, the benefits, the state benefits, including Badger Care and Food Share, got taken away from the vast majority of immigrants in our state. And so now we're going to have this huge need for more mutual aid and health care. And so it just feels like every day is a new thing that we're reacting to. And we're so thankful to our partners on the ground in so many areas of Wisconsin, especially Voces de la Frontera and Centro and so many others. And I almost said but because that work's always going to have to be in place. And we have to
Yes,
have these conversations about exactly what you said. What are the systematic, what are the, how do we create a reality in our state that doesn't allow for the things that we've been reacting to in the last 18 months and beyond that, that's just more recent history. So I appreciate that you're bringing us together, kind of tasking us with this thought and this idea of what kind of systemic change can we do so as we move forward together. And that's the key part as well. It's so easy to get caught in your little silos, not because that's our intention, but it's because we're also overwhelmed right now. And so the
right.
opportunity to come and meet in person, thank you for that, is such a great opportunity to meet other people, to connect in relevant ways so that we can really move forward and make some incredible change. So this is happening July 31st and August 1st. It's a Friday and a Saturday.
Saturday.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about what we can expect on for the summit?
Great. Yeah, we're very excited about the lineup and so excited. Hopefully we'll get 100 or so people there. We're holding it in Fond du Lac, so that we're not just the southeast corner of the
Absolutely. I love
of the
that.
state.
Yes.
And it will be held at Marian University in Fond du Lac, and it starts on a Friday night. And we're excited that our keynote speaker on Friday night, on the Friday night dinner, is Josh Kaul, the Attorney General of Wisconsin. So we're interested in talking to him about, what the role of the Attorney General is and can be. I mean, we see in other states around us that the Attorney General has a very strong role in trying to protect the citizens of the state. Regardless of their documented status. And we'd like to hear from Attorney General Kaul about that, and also how he works with counties that do or don't have 287G agreements, and how he works with the federal law enforcement organization. So that's going to be an exciting keynote speaker. And then on Saturday, we're going to have a combination of presentations and workshops. So the presentations, the first one will be by Cole Torres of League of Women Voters of,
Hmm.
of Wisconsin
She's
about
wonderful.
about how law enforcement 287G agreements, just where are we with that, and how does local law enforcement currently work with federal immigration authorities and so forth. And then we'll also be having a panel discussion with a bunch of really strong and interesting folks from all over the state on how to build sustainable and effective campaigns.
Mm.
So again, we're talking about campaigns that are going to be longer term in your local or regional area or across the state about some of these things. So we have on that panel Christine Newman Ortiz of Voces de la Frontera, who you probably know, I'm sure.
Yes,
Uh,
she's
Fa-
unbelievable.
yes, Fazia Qureshi who's the executive director of
Yeah,
Wisconsin Muslim Civic Alliance. Alfonso, I'm going to mispronounce some of these names.
quite all right.
Alfonso Zepeda Capestran, who is founder and president of Lucha, and Nat Godley of Milwaukee Turners. So
Hmm.
quite a stellar group of people who've
I mean, I
done.
would go just for
Yeah,
that panel. I think that
I
that is an
know.
incredible lineup.
Isn't that fun?
Wow.
So a great group of people. And Maria Flores, who is a former regional manager for Chicago EEOC, will be the moderator of that panel, and
Hmm.
she's wonderful. She's on our planning committee and really terrific. And then we have a couple of workshops as well. The first will be, and people will divide up, so they'll get to go to both of them. The first will be led by Fond du Lac County Supervisor Kat Griffith, and it will be about how to talk to local elected officials about immigration policy. And then the second workshop will be how to talk to your friends and neighbors and family about immigrants and immigration. And it will be co-led by Cameron Swallow, who is a former regional coordinator and trainer for Braver Angels. I don't know if
Oh,
you've
sure.
heard
Yeah.
about Braver Angels, but
Hmm.
they do a lot of good work helping people to talk about what they call the red-blue divide. And then Barry McCormick, who's professor emeritus of Marquette and a volunteer with Hanan Relief Group. So the workshops will be more hands-on. They'll hopefully give people some time to practice some of these skills. And then actually the last thing, which I'm very excited about, we will have regional planning sessions before we leave. The purpose of which is to build relationships in your particular region. So, of course, we've divided it up into kind of the four big regions in Wisconsin. And so people will go into their regional planning sessions and come up with facilitated plans about what's next. How do we stay together? How do we stay aligned? How do we coordinate some of the things that we're doing and go away, we hope, with plans and next steps for maybe how we do this again.
Yeah, that's so good. A couple of things that I want to highlight are the importance of keeping everything, I like the emphasis on some local presence, and I that specifically with your breakouts about talking to local officials and talking to family. I think sometimes we are faced with the news in the morning and we wonder, well, what do we do with this huge national crisis that's going on around immigration? Well, honestly, one thing you can do is talk to your family and friends. That's maybe I would argue the first thing that you could do. The number of conversations that I have just in my household, and it's very meaningful because it will help flush out ideas, thoughts. It's a safe space most of the time, which I appreciate. And then really the work that happens within the context of local elected officials. I mean, that's so vital. And again, these 287G agreements, that's for those who don't know, that's just an agreement between local law enforcement and Department of Homeland Security of how they work together or don't work together, which is what we're encouraging.
Yes.
But if I'm coming from Madison trying to talk to a local elected official in Wausau, they're not going to open their door to me. But if you're a resident of Wausau and you want to talk to your local elected official, you're much more likely to get their ear. And so that's why that piece is so important. So I appreciate that. And then I also appreciate the last thing I'll say is I really appreciate that regional piece because I know when the world caught on fire 18 months ago, and we couldn't even believe some of the things that were starting to happen with our immigrant population. One of the things we had to be really careful of right out of the gates is that we weren't all doing the same thing, and that I wasn't trying to do something that Voces de la Frontera was already doing, et cetera, et cetera. And, there's been some really good work to make sure that we're all, I like to say that we're all staying in our lane, do what you do and don't do what I do, because you don't have to. We're already doing it. So that will be really important work, just to make sure that there's really good collaboration, really good connection, so that people can genuinely be working together. Because if we don't work together, we've got no hope. So I really appreciate
Yeah, there's
all of
there's a
those
lot of
things.
work to be done, and we need all hands on deck. And I think one of the things, in terms of two things that you said. First of all, in terms of organizations working together, sometimes we just don't even know what others are doing,
Good
and
point.
so we see a need and we say, "Well, gee, I got to fill that need. I've got to take care of that." And so you build an infrastructure, quick infrastructure to build that need, and then pretty soon you say, "Oh my gosh, somebody over there is already doing this, and maybe doing
Mhm.
it better because they've been doing it longer." And that's what I hope. I hope we'll actually just even understand what other people are doing, and learn from one another. I mean, maybe we're not you're not doing it in Racine, or you're not doing it in, Fox Valley, but I could learn from you and not reinvent the wheel. So I'm hoping that kind of conversation will start happening. The other thing you said about talking to people about immigration. So again, gosh, I think since 2017, we've been doing these presentations all over Racine. And I guess because I'm so close to it, I am shocked how little even very well educated, very well read, very tuned into the news people are, who haven't a clue, who really do not understand the basics of why we are in this situation, why
Mhm.
there truly is no path to citizenship for 90+% of the undocumented population, why, there is no line to stand in, and why your ancestors didn't have to do anything but get off the boat, and that's quite different than now where we are with our very broken immigration system. So just that, sheer education, both with people who um, could and would and are allies, and those maybe who um, have misinformation
Yeah, so
planted
true.
in their in their
So
heads.
true, so true. Well,
But
thank you again, Nikki, so much for all of your work and stepping into this role as interim executive director for Wisdom, and then for putting on this incredible summit. If people want to go to the summit, I mean, this is crazy, Nikki. It's $25. I mean, come on, that's
yes, oh
so
yes, I
that's
didn't mention
so
that. We
inexpensive.
we have
$25.
wonderful sponsors that are helping us so that we can keep the cost very low.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that. And even if I know this is overnight, so even if you're needing a place to stay, there's some really affordable options right at Marian University. Fond du Lac, just so everybody knows, it's not too far away from Milwaukee. It's not too far away from Madison. It's not too far from Green Bay. It's kind of right smack dab in the middle. So, do yourself a favor and take the 45-minute hour drive, stay overnight, meet some great people doing some work that's probably similar to what you are all doing. If you haven't signed up yet, just go to wisdomwisconsin.org and you'll find the form right there. We'll put that all in the show notes. We're going to be highlighting it on our website and our social media as well, because we want as many people there as possible. And again, can't thank you enough, Nikki, for taking a little bit of time and for the incredible work that Wisdom and all of your affiliates are doing across our state.
Thank you so much. You take care.